Come and make a personalized tumbler with me. I'm getting so into sublimation, and I got sent these by PYD Life, and I couldn't make them because my tumbler or my mug press doesn't fit something this fat and massive. So stay tuned and see what I use as a home solution to be able to make sublimation tumblers. Now, the first thing I needed to do was measure this big guy because I need to know exactly what size to make my tumbler wrap. So I measured it out. I measured around the side of it as well as the height of it. Then I also want to make sure I give it a really good wipe down to make sure there's no debris or oils or anything stuck to the outside of the tumbler so that I can go ahead and sublimate on top of it and have a most perfect result that I can get. The next thing I need to do is find my print. So I went to my new all favorite website, Creative Fabrica, and I searched for what I wanted. It's obviously already in my search engine because I was looking it up the night before. And then I clicked the little freebies box on the left-hand side to get the ones that are free because I haven't paid for this membership yet, but I will be doing by next week because I'm so in love that I want to access everything on it. I'll leave the link for this website down in the description box below for you. They do a free month trial, which is what I'm doing, which is why I keep talking about it because it just seems to have everything on it. So I went ahead and downloaded the Crazy Cat Lady, and then I put it into Pages on my MacBook. I know if you've got a Windows PC, then you would use a Microsoft Word, but I haven't got that. So I use Pages, which is the free app on a MacBook. And I don't know what else to use. I don't have any other programming software that I could do this in. So I just pop it in there and then I go to size and I change the size to the measurements I measured of my tumbler. They also do have the measurements for the tumbler online, so you can look it up and put those in. But I like to measure it myself and make sure I get exactly what I want. So I go ahead and put those measurements in and it changes the size of my file. And then I just drag it to the middle to make sure it's going to print okay. When I go into my printer settings, I make sure I've got my Sublimation printer selected. And then I'm going to make sure I only print the page that's got ink on it, obviously. And then I'll go into color management. I found this one here was the best color profile on my computer. I select Epson matte and high quality and make sure you mirror that image. If you do not mirror that image, it will print out Crazy Cat Lady as it is. And then when you put it on your tumbler, it will be backwards. So really, really important when you're doing sublimation to reverse it. So here it is printing. It takes about 10 minutes roughly to print out if you use those settings because it saturates that paper really nicely. So I've got it in my Epson printer, which is not a sublimation printer, but does print sublimation ink if you use it for sublimation. So you need a brand new printer that's never had ink in it before, and you can add sublimation ink into it as long as it is an Epson EcoTank. And I don't think the model matters too much. Mine was from Costco when they had it on sale and I paid about £100 for it and it works beautifully. The next thing I've got is this thing from PYD Life. They also sent me this to help with wrapping my tumbler. You could use, I've seen people use pool noodles and tape them together to kind of help hold, but it just gives you an extra hand. So I find it really difficult to wrap something that can roll around on my desk. And I also don't want it rolling around because it's going to pick up debris, but it's also really difficult and hard to get this on there. You want to make sure that your wrap is super, super tight. Now I've got about 1/8 of an inch overlap and I wanted an overlap to make sure I don't have any gap. So what I need to do is be sure to overlap it and pull it as tight as I possibly can to ensure that there's no gaps and that there's lots of good pressure on the tape. I am not a sublimation expert. I am just getting started on this, but there are so many people, and I'll link a couple people down below. There's Jennifer Maker and there's Angie Holden, I think her name is. And they're kind of like the sublimation queens. So I'll link their YouTubes down below. So if you want any more information on it, you can check them out. Now, this is my magic little trick. I realized I don't need a sublimation oven. I just need an oven. So I got this little guy here. He was brand new, got him off Facebook Marketplace for £40. I was like, so pleased. It's Russell Hobbs and it's just brilliant. The other thing I do is I keep a little thermometer in that oven because I found that it doesn't always give you the true temperature. And so with that thermometer in there, I can then adjust my temperature a little bit better and make sure I get the right kind of heat on there. Now this is a sleeve. You need one of these kind of sleeves. It's a shrink wrap sleeve. And what they do is they apply the pressure that a machine would apply to your mug or to your tumbler, I should say. So I just kind of pinched off the area because that's what it said to do online. And then I removed it once it was getting all nice and tight. And you can see here that it has gone super tight and snug all around it. I'm using a heat gun to shrink that shrink wrap. And then that way the pressure is there and the print is nice and tight against the tumbler. And then I'm going to get a hopefully beautiful result. Now, I was totally nervous this was going to be an absolute fail, especially because I popped it in and then I looked at it and it started bubbling like crazy because the heat had got too high and I hadn't quite twigged that the oven had gone higher than the temperature I had set it at. So I had to leave the door open for a little while. When I left that door open for a little while, it meant that it cooled down the oven enough to stop the bubbling, but you'll see it here in just a second. I'm going to put my heat resistant gloves on because this is about 180 to 200 degrees Celsius. So here you can see the bubbles where it kind of popped open. I thought, oh no, the impression's not going to be good. It's not going to have been tight enough. I'll have a really bad reveal, but it actually worked out amazingly well. Now, when you use the shrink wrap, one thing that I've learned is that you have to take it off while it's hot. It gets really, really difficult to take it off when it's cool. It kind of becomes like a really hard plastic, whereas right now it's like shopping bag plastic. So it's much easier to peel off. And then you just remove all your tape and then you can see the image underneath. Now, this was such a fun project to do, and I was so impressed that I could use just a bog standard little mini oven, and I didn't need to buy the 200, 300 pound fancy oven. I got to just buy one off of Facebook, and look at this seam. Look how flawless that is. I can't believe I lined it up so perfectly and I didn't go skew. I love my new drink cup. I am totally a crazy cat lady. I've got 4 and I would have 10 if my husband let me. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had fun with this little sublimation project. I'm probably going to be sharing a few more sublimation projects here and there because I'm having a lot of fun making little gifts and I want to take you along on the ride. Take care. See you soon.